Hi friends, my name is Nandita. I am from Andhra Pradesh.
Good morning, dear friends. Today we are going to discuss about Adivasis. Let us see who are these Adivasis. Adivasis are the communities who lived and often continue to live in close association with forest. There are over 500 different groups are there in India. Adivasi is the collective term for tribes of Indian subcontinent who are considered indigenous to places within India wherein they live, either as foragers or tribalistic sedentary communities. The term is also used for ethnic minorities such as Chakmas of Bangladesh, Chas of Nepal, Veda of Sri Lanka. Let us see is Adivasi a caste. Yet an Adivasi identified different from a caste identity into two key respects. First, it is essentialized as being accompanied by a backward trope tied to nature. The term Adivasi is derived from the Hindu word Adi, which means of earliest times, and they still believe in their ancestral spirit gods. The term Adivasi literally means original inhabitants are the communities who lived and often continue to live in close association with forest. As we discussed earlier, around 8% of Indians population is Adivasis, and many of Indians most important mining and industrial centers are located in Adivasis areas. Jamshedpur, Rulkela, Bokraro, and Bhilai, among others. Adivasis are not a homogeneous population. Adivasis are particularly numerous in states like Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, and in northeastern states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. A state like Odisha is home to more than 60 different tribal groups. Adivasi societies are also most distinctive because there is often very little hierarchy among them. This makes them radically different from communities organized around principles of Jati, Varna means caste, those that we were ruled by the kings. The Government of India has coined a constitutional term for Adivasis, scheduled tribes or ST. According to Article 342 of Constitution of India, there are over 700 scheduled tribes in India as per the 211 Census Report of India. There are around 104 million indigenous people in India. Adivasis comprise 8.6% of total population of the country. Odisha has the highest number of Adivasi communities within 62 tribes living there. There are about 75 small Adivasis communities in India called the particularly vulnerable tribal groups means PVTG. This includes communities like the Jarava, Chinchu, Korva, Lodha, and Bhonda. Approximately 480 languages are spoken by indigenous and nomadic people in India. According to UNESCO report, 42 of these languages are critically endangered and are on the verge of extinction. Adivasis in India have consistently contributed to the diverse culture of the country. They are experts in wildlife and the nature conservation and have knowledge of various sustainable agricultural and living practices, ethnomedicine, and have a rich culture of stories literature, art, and dance forms. Let us say the tribals are also referred to as Adivasis. You may have heard the term scheduled tribes. Scheduled tribes is the term used for Adivasis used by the Indian government in various official documents. There is an official list of tribes. Scheduled tribes are often grouped together which scheduled caste in the category scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Now let us see where do these Adivasis live in India. In the earliest 21st century, the Adivasis population of India was more than 84 million, with the majority living in the northeastern states of Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram and Nagaland. Smaller numbers inhabited the hills on the forest of central and southern India as well as the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now let us see what kind of language they speak. Adivasi language being spoken at one place. Through Odia, it is the prevalent language of the states. The 37 workshop participants spoke in languages including Kuyi, Sura, Gadaba, Desiya, Gondi, Kudak, Bhondi, Nagpuri and Sabara. Even they speak Bengali and Santalai. Now let us see what Adivasis are going to eat. Adivasis used to grow different kinds of millets, that flagship, a variety being the Parsa Jona or Big Jawar, and three varieties of rice besides a few types of vegetable as the part of their backyard farming. Now let us discuss that the Adivasis are Dravidians. Yes, if it was believed at one time the Dravidians were the original inhabitants of India, the view has since been considerably modified. Now the generally acceptable belief is that the pre-Dravidian aborigines, that is, the ancestors of the present tribals or Adivasis, were the original inhabitants. Adivasis practice a range of tribal religions that are different from Islam, Hinduism, and Christianity. These are often involved the worship of ancestors, village, and nature spirit. The last associated with the residing in various sites in the landscape, mountain spirits, river spirits, animal spirits, etc. The village spirits are often worshipped at the specific sacred groves within the village boundaries, while the ancestral ones are usually worshipped at home. Additionally, Adivasis have always been influenced by different surroundings religions like Shakta, Buddhist, Vaishnav, Bhakti, and Christianity. Simultaneously, Adivasi religions themselves have influenced dominant religions of empires around them. For example, Jagannath cult of Odisha and Shakti and Tantric traditions in Bengal and Assam. During the 19th century, the substantial numbers of Adivasis converted to Christianity, which has emerged as a very important religion in modern Adivasi history. Adivasis have their own language, most of them radically different from the possibility as old as Sanskrit, which have often deeply influenced the formation of mainstream Indian languages like Bengali. Santalai has the largest number of speakers and has a significant body of publications including magazines on the internet or e-zines. Adivasis and stereotyping in India. We usually showcase Adivasi communities in a particular ways. those during the school functions or other official events or in books and movies, the Adivasis are invariably portrayed in a very stereotypical ways in colorful costumes, headgear, and through their dancing. Besides this, we seems to know a very little about realities of their lives. This often wrongly leads to the people believing that they are exotic, primitive, and backward. Often Adivasis are blamed for their lack of advancement as they are believed to be resistant to change or new ideas. Let us say the tribals are also referred to as Adivasis. You may have heard the term scheduled tribes. Scheduled tribes is the term used for Adivasis used by the Indian government in various official documents. There is an official list of tribes. Scheduled tribes are often grouped together with scheduled caste in the category scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Many tribals are not Hindus or nor Muslims, as is the case with most Indians. Many are animists that believe in spirits. Some are Christian, some tribes believe that having their picture taken will shorten their lives. Among tribes, the religious concepts, terminologies, and practices are as varied as the hundreds of tribes, but members of these groups have one thing in common. They are under constant pressure from the major organized religions. Some of this pressure is intentional, as outside missionaries work among tribal groups to gain converts. Most of the pressures, however, comes from the process of integration within a national political or economic system that brings tribes into increasing contact with other groups and different prestigious belief systems. In general, those tribes that remain geographically isolated in desert, hill, and forest regions or islands are able to retain their traditional cultures and religions longer. Those tribes that make the transition away from hunting and gathering and towards sedentary agricultural, usually as low status laborers, find their ancient religious form in decay and their place filled by practices of Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, or Buddhism. One of the most studied tribal region is that of the Santal of Orissa, Bihar, and West Bengal. One of the largest tribes in India, having population estimated at 4.2 million according to 1991 census. However, only 23,645 people listed Santal as their religious belief. According to the Santal religion, the supreme deity who ultimately controls their entire universe is Thakurji. The weight of belief, however, falls on a court of spirits who handle different aspects of the world and who must be placated with prayers and offering in order to ward of evil influence. These spirits operate at the village, household, ancestors, and subclan level. Among the evil spirits that cause diseases and can inhabit village boundaries, mountains, waters, tiger, and forest. A characteristic feature of the Santal village is cat grove on the edge of the settlement where many spirits live and where a series of annual festivals takes place. A yearly round of rituals connected with the agricultural cycle along with the life cycle rituals for birth, marriage and burial at death, involving petitions to the spirits and offering that include the sacrifice of animals, usually birds. Religious leaders are male specialists in medicinal cures who practice divination and witchcraft. Similarly, beliefs are common among the other tribes of northeast and the central India such as Kharia, Munda and Oranon. Smaller and more isolated tribes often demonstrate less articulated classification systems of spiritual hierarchy. Described as animism, or a generalized worship of spiritual energies connected with locations, activities, and social group. Religious concepts are intricately entwined with ideas and about nature and interaction with local ecological systems. As in Santal religion, religious spirits are drawn from the village or family and serve a wide range of spiritual functions that focus on a placating potential dangerous spirits and coordinating rituals. Unlike the Santal, who have a large population long accustomed to agricultural and a distinguished history of resistance to outsiders, many smaller tribal groups are quite sensitive to ecological degradation caused by modernization, and their unique religious beliefs are under constant threat. Even among the Santal, there are 3 lakhs Christians who are eliminated from the traditional festivals, although even among converts the belief in the spirits remains strong. Among the Munda and Aronan, the tribe groups in the Himalayas were similarly affected by both Hinduism and Buddhism in the late 20th century. Even the small huntings and gathering groups in the Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands have been under severe pressures because of the migration of these areas and the resulting reduction of their hunting areas. Now let us discuss about the Indian tribal life. Many tribals live in widely dispersed villages with families living on farms surrounded by fields. A temple or a public platform under a large tree is a center place where males from upper and middle caste meet and spend their time. Tribes have traditional hunted and collected food in the forest. Many tribes believe that if someone is ill, it is because they were attacked by an evil spirit being cured by a switch. Many regions where tribals live are off limits to outsiders. This is so their culture and are not disrupted and the tribes are not exploited or harmed. Alcoholism is a problem among some tribes. Many tribes make their own home brewed beers or spirits. Most of are derived from rice, some of other grains. Additionally, opium use in common among some tribes. The government often provides opium ration to the tribes, but illegal cultivation also occur. Some tribe members have been awarded with opium for catching convicts. Most tribes are concentrated in heavily forested areas that combine inaccessibility with limited political or economical significance. Historically, the economy of most tribes was subsistence, agricultural, or hunting and gathering. Land, if seen in terms of ownership at all, was viewed as a commercial resource free to whoever needed it. Tribe members traded with outsiders for a few necessities they lacked, such as salt and iron. A few local Hindu craftsmen might provide such items as cooking utensils. The 20th century, however, has been far-reaching changes in the relationship between tribes and the large society and by extension traditional tribal economics. In previous generations, families might have purchased silver jewelries as for form of security. Contemporary tribal people are more likely to buy minor consumer goods. Now let us discuss about the Indian policy and the tribal people. Government policies on forest reservoirs have affected tribal people profoundly. Wherever the state has chosen to exploit forest, it has seriously undermined the tribe's way of life. Government efforts to reserve forest have precipitated armed resistance on the part of tribal people involved. Intensive exploitations of forest has often meant allowing outsiders to cut large areas of trees and ultimately replacing mixed forest capable of sustaining tribal life with single product plantations. Where forests are reserved, non tribes have proved far more sophisticated than their forest counterparts at bribing the necessity local official to secure effective use of forest lands. Tribal languages suffered huge setbacks with the formation of linguistic states after 1956 under the States Reorganization Act. For example, under the state sponsored educational pressure, irregular children are being taught Tamil, and sense of shame has begun to be associated with speaking the Irula language among some children and educated adults. Similarly, the Santals are gradually adopting languages of these areas inhabited, like Oriya in Odisha, Hindi in Bihar, and in Bengal, Bihari and Bengali in West Bengal. Now let us discuss about Indian tribal belt. The so-called tribal belt embraces central and northeast India, which extends across the center of India from Pakistan in the west to Bangladesh and Myanmar in the east. The belt is home to 81 million indigenous people whose ancestors may have inhabited India before. Aryan invaders, the ancestors of Hindus, arrived around 1500 BC. The tribal belt is one of the Indian's most impoverished regions. Many tribes traditionally lived off the forest, but the forests are shrinking and they have been forced to try the cultivated fields. But where they live, the land is often in short supply and enough to go around. In some cases, tribals are prevented from chopping trees here and there while loggers and miners work legally or bribe politicians to gain access to resources. Details about the demography of India. Tribal people are lacking. Most national census does not gather information on a tribe by tribe basis. In some cases, researchers have go back to British data collected on the earlier 1930 and extrapolated from that. While a few tribes are in danger of extinction, they are being challenged by the encroachment of the other groups on their territory and threats from modernization, westernization, secularization, and Christian minor missionaries. Now let us discuss about hill tribes. Hill tribe is a term long used by the British and American travelers and colonial authorities in South Asia and Southeast Asia to describe indigenous groups that inhabit highland areas. The term is not liked by anthropologists because it has lexical overtones. Pulses it catalogs a variety of diverse groups into a single category and minimizes their differences and downplays the things that make them unique or even extraordinary. The preferred term is ethnic minority or simply minority. In most cases, hill tribes are defined as indigenous communities that live at an elevation above 1000 meters. Tribes tend to be groups that occupy a certain geographical area and marry within the groups. They often have their own language and their own distinct material culture. Hill tribes members have traditionally been regarded as enemies, but there are many examples of hill tribe members who are Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, and Christian. And while most of them have traditionally been agriculturalistic, there are also examples of one made upon pastoralists. Rather than mingling with the lowland people, the hill tribes have preferred to keep themselves by living in small villages nestled in mountains that were once covered with dense forest. In some cases, the hill tribes consider themselves to be politically independent from the government of the country. they reside in and the land they live on to be separate state. Now let us discuss the education of tribal people in India. Extending the system of primary education into tribal areas and reserving places for tribal children in middle and high schools and higher education institutions are the central to government policy, but efforts to improve a tribe's education status have had mixed result. Recruitment of qualified teachers and determination of the appropriate language of instructions also remain troublesome. Commissions after commission on the language question has called for instruction at least the primary level in the student's native tongue. In some regions, the tribal children entering school must begin by learning the official religion language, often one completely unrelated to their tribal tongue. The experiences of the Gonds of Andhra Pradesh provide an example. Primary school begins there in 1940 and 1950s. The government selected a group of Gonds who had managed to become illiterate in Telugu and taught them the basis of written script. These individuals became teachers who taught in Gondi, and their efforts enjoyed a measure of success until the 1970s. When the state policy demanded instruction in Telugu, the switch in the language of instruction both made the Gond teachers and superfluous because they could not teach in Telugu, and also presented the government with the problem of finding reasonable qualified teachers willing to teach in outlying tribal schools. The commitment of tribes to acquiring the formal education for their children varies considerably. Tribes differ in extent to which they view education positively. The effectiveness of education policy likewise varies by region. In those parts, the northeast, east, where the tribes have generally been spared the whole scale onslaught of outsiders, schooling has helped tribal people to secure political and economic benefits. The education system there has proved a crop of highly trained tribal members in the professions and high ranking administrative posts. Many tribal schools are plagued by the high dropout rates. Children attend for the first 3 to 4 years of primary school and gain a smattering of knowledge, only to lapse into literacy later. Few who entered continue up to the 10th grade. Of those who do, few manage to finish high school. Therefore, very few are eligible to attend institutions of higher education where the high rate of attrition continues. Now let us discuss the development of Adivasis. As you already read in your history book, textbook, forests were absolutely crucial to the development of all empires and settled civilizations in India. Metal ores like iron and copper and gold and silver, coal and diamonds, invaluable timber, most medicinal herbs and animal products like wax, lac, honey and animals themselves or came from the forest. In addition, the continuation of a life depends heavily on the forest that helps recharge many of India's rivers and as is becoming clearing now. Crucial to the availability and quantity of our air and water. Forests cover the major part of our country till the 19th century, and the Adivasis had a deep knowledge of assist to as well as to control over the most of the vast tracts at least till the middle of the 19th century. This meant that they were not ruled by large states and empires. Instead of often empires heavily depend on Adivasis for the crucial access to forest resources. This is radically counter to our image of Adivasis today as somewhat marginal and powerless communities. In the pre-colonial world, they were traditionally ranked hunters gatherers and nomads, and they lived by shifting agricultural and also cultivating in one place. Although this remained for the past 200 years, Adivasis have been increasingly forced through economic changes, forest policies, and political force applied by the state and private industry to migrate to live as workers in plantations, as construction sites and industrials, and as a domestic workers. For the first time in history, they do not control how much direct access to the forest territories. Forest lands have been cleared for timber and to get land for the agriculture and industries. Adivasis have also lived in areas that are rich in mineral and the other natural resources. They are taken over for mining and the other large industrial projects. Powerful forces have often clouded allowed to take over tribal land. Much of the time, the land is taken away forcefully and produces are not followed. According to official figures, more than 50% of persons displaced due to mines and mining projects are tribals. Another recent survey report by organizations working among Adivasis shows that 79% of the persons displaced from the state of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, and Jharkhand are tribals. Huge tracts of their land have also gone under the waters of hundreds of dams that have been built in independent India. In the northeast, their lands remain highly militarized. The India has 104 national parks covering 40,501 square centimeters and 543 wildlife sanctuaries covering 1,18,918 square kilometers. These are areas where tribal originally lived but they were evicted from. When they continue to stay in this forest, they are termed encroachers. Losing their lands and accessing to the forest means the tribals lost their main source of livelihood and food. Having gradually lost access to their traditional homelands, many Adivasis have migrated to cities in search of work where they are employed for few low wages in local industries or at built on other construction sites. They get caught in a cycle of poverty and deprivation. 45% of tribal groups in rural areas and 35% in urban areas live below the poverty line. This leads to deprivation in other areas. Many tribal children are malnutrition and literacy rates among tribals are also very low. When Adivasis are displaced from their lands, they lose much more than a source of income. They lose their traditions and customs, a way of living and being. They took our farming land. They left some houses. They took the cremation grounds, temples, well, and pond. If we ask how we survive, a person named Govinda Maran, who was displaced due to refinery project in Odisha, as you have read, this exists an interconnectedness between the economic and social dimensions of tribal life. Destruction in one sphere naturally impacts the other. Often this process of dispoisons and displacements can be painful and violent. From the 1830s onwards, Adivasis from Jharkhand and adjoining areas moved in a very large number to various plantations in India, and India's tea industry became possible with their labor in Assam. Today there are 70 lakh Adivasis in Assam alone. The story of this migration is full of extreme hardship, torture, heartbreak and death. For example, in the 19th century, alone 5 lakh Adivasis are purchased in this migration. The song below captures the hopes of the migrants and the reality they faced in Assam. Come, Minnie, let's go to Assam, our country has much offering. The countries of Assam of many has tea gardens full of greenery. Now let us discuss the constitutional status of Adivasis. Under the 1950 Constitution, Adivasis, along with the so-called untouchables, become subject to special protective provisions. The vast majority of indigenous people were classified as scheduled tribes according to Article 341. The Article 341 authorizes the President of India to specify caste, race, or tribes which shall, of the purpose of this Constitution, to be deemed to be scheduled tribes. The first amendment of the Constitution, passed in 1951, allowed the state to make special provisions for the advancement of socially and educationally backward classes of citizens of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. The central government has a special commission for scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes which issues an annual report. This report gives account of illegal actions against Adivasis and makes recommendations to improve their position. Now let us discuss about the Adivasis political representation. There are reserved seats for scheduled tribes in parliament and the state legislatures. In two houses of parliament and Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, 7% of the seats were reserved for members of scheduled tribes, and similarly representations occurs in the state assemblies in proportions to the percentage of scheduled tribes in the state's population. However, since the scheduled tribes voters are always a minority in the reserved constitutions and in the legislators as whole, favorable legislation can be blocked by vested interest. Furthermore, the system does not encourage organizations of scheduled tribes by separate parties but limits it to organize and representations by the major parties, especially the Congress party. The governments usually have ministers from scheduled tribes, including sometimes cabinet ministers, specially to look after the affairs of scheduled tribes. The Buria Committee was set up by the indigenous MPs to secure the extension of the 73rd and 74th articles of the Constitution, which below authority of scheduled areas. It presented its report in January 1995. The Buria Committee report drew mixed reactions. While many felt that the process initiated by the committees should be supported, it was criticized because its recommendation did not extend to many indigenous areas and because of lack of gender sensitivity. There have been very few attempts to found distinctive scheduled tribes political parties apart from those in the northeastern states. Perhaps the most notable example has been in eastern and southern Bihar, where the Adivasis regionalist Jharkhand movement has been a factor since independence. The roots of this movement lie in the Santal people of eastern Bihar and western Bengal, the scenes of one of the earlier indigenous revolts against land alienation under British rule. Some of this area also contains India's richest mineral deposits, and mining and subsequent industrialization and deforestation have added Adivasis grievances. The Jharkhand Party was founded in 1950 and had its main demand for the formation of separate state or territory in the traditional Adivasis area of Santal Parganas and Chotangpur areas in West Bengal, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh. Now let us discuss the current issues about Adivasis. Adivasis continue to face prejudice and often violence from mainstream Indian society. They are at the lowest point of almost ever socio-economic indicator. The majority of the population regards them as primitive, and government programs aim to integrating them with the majority society rather than allowing them to maintain their distinctive way of life. While the larger tribal groups and languages will survive as the result of numbers, the destruction of their economic base and environment poses grave threats to those who are still able to follow their traditional way of life and may result in the cultural extinction of many of the smaller Adivasi peoples. Although beneficiaries of Indians' extensive reservations, it remains the case that the impact of the quota system upon Adivasis has remained negligible up until now. The quotas within the higher education and jobs which require technical knowledge seems to have not worked in improving access so far. Quotas for Adivasis, for example, at higher education levels remain unfilled. The majority of Dalit and Adivasi children dropped out before the high school. There have been lack of support by the state towards the Adivasi committee when it has been come to land redistribution rights, rights of marginal farmers and daily laborers, rights to the tillers of the soil, and rehabilitation rights. It needs to be stated that Adivasis constitute the poorest component across various states in India, irrespective of the political makeup of the state government. The Adivasi districts of West Bengal, Bankuri, Purulai are some of the poorest districts in India, in spite of the fact that a leftist government was in the power in the state of 34 of the past 43 years. The nationalization trend of the 1970 to build a heavy industry close to source of raw material has further contributed to systematic displacement of Adivasis from their land. The district in some of the other non-left states like Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan reflect similar socio-economic indicators as far as the Adivasis population is concerned. The creation of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Uttaranchal has been a small step forward in resorting to the Adivasis their sense of identity and their right to existence. The state of Jharkhand was created in 2000 essentially in recognition of the right to the political organization to the Adivasi community through the establishment of the separate state. There is now a discourage for the reservation of the Adivasi community in jobs and education at the state level. It though remains to be seen what reforms the governments in these states take to protect the interest of Adivasi communities living there. One of the major reasons for the economic and social problem of Adivasi populations has been their gradual displacement from their customary lands. Adivasis have been denied land ownership rights over the last centuries, and their displacement from their land has made them reach a state where they are fighting to retain their economic and social identity. Now, not only is the amount of compensation received by the Adivasis extremely small, but also the number of Adivasis who have been compensated is negligible. The reason is that legal obstacles are created to deny Adivasi compensation rather than the law being used to ensure justice. In 2006, Forest Right Act was enacted to secure the rights of Adivasis to their customary lands and forest. The bill recognizes scheduled tribes as legitimate stakeholders in the management of forest. It aims to secure ownership of forest producer, grazing rights, right to habitation, and community rights to traditional knowledge related to cultural and forest diversity. But implementation of the FRA has been extremely low until now, with collective claims languishing in bureaucratic process and less than 2% of potential claims reportedly resolved. Furthermore, in February 2019, ruling by the Indian Supreme Court of implementing of the FRA 2006 put more than 1 million Adivasis at the risk of eviction from their lands and homes. The court asked officially in nearly 2 dozen states to submit details of claims that were settled under the FRA and evict those whose applications were turned down before 24th July 2019. Over 95% of the scheduled tribes still live in rural areas, and economic exploitation remains their most acute problem. Less than 10% are itinerant gatherers, but more than half depend on forest produce for their livelihood, many in the form of tendu leaf used for the production of bidi, means cigarettes. From the time of British administration, there have been laws regulating their ownership and use of the forest, and today most of the forest land is effectively nationalized, with a large areas contracted out to private commercial interest. This has progressively deprived Adivasi communities of rights in the land, and they can be fined or imprisoned for taking forest produce which has traditionally been theirs. The ostensible reason for the state intervention has been to stop the destruction of the forest land, which has continued throughout this century. These are the large number of reasons for deforestation, although it is often blamed on the Adivasi shifting cultivation practices. One has been the increase in demand for firewood as fuel, another is the impact of commercial, sometimes illegal loggings. A serious threat to Adivasis is a large scale dam building for irrigation and hydroelectricity. A number of hydro schemes have been carried out since independence, and a constitutional and political battle was long waged over the constructions of a large dams in the Narmada basin. One third of planned for the river. The protest ultimately failed to halt the dam project, which meant ahead. One of the world's largest dam, the Sardar Sarovar Dam, reached its maximum capacity in September 2019. According to local indigenous activities, at least 178 villages had been partially or fully submerged, leading to the displacement of thousands of inhabitants. As it with as with the scheduled caste, members of scheduled tribes are beneficiaries of affirmative action provisions laid down in the constitution, which reserve places in education, the civil services, and nationalized industries. Affirmative actions policies have led to the noticeable increase of Adivasis in government sector, employment, and in public educational institutions. However, any success of the reservation policies have been uneven across sectors, while the significant improves are visible at the lower levels of governmental services. There is a birth of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe representation at the higher echelons of public services and key governmental posts. Furthermore, an affirmative action policy strictly limited to the public sector have not improved to the prospects of Adivasis in growing private sector. Adivasis often face a hardships and exclusion of because of physical remoteness, poverty, and prevalent social prejudices. Since few Adivasis finishing schooling, most of are unable to use the reserved places in higher education or the civil services. The Panchayati Raj Extension to the Scheduled Areas Act of 1996 was introduced in the late 1990 as a legislative means of promoting self-governance in rural areas through the creation of local village bodies. This legislation has helped Adivasis to formulate responses to various local issues and to organize themselves at the local level by building local political institutions. The implementation of the Act needs to strengthen further to help Adivasis to protect their interests and identify in various states across the India. Thank you.